Hello and welcome back to another one of my YouTube videos. And what you just saw obviously wasn't me. It was Markus Ottenberg of the German band Issun showing off a few licks of the latest Issun album. And in doing so, he demoed the Helix preset I made for him. And the history of this Helix preset is, well, Markus dropped me a line and said, well, we are going to begin rehearsals for the upcoming Issun tune. And the latest Issun album is, of course, old school classic new wave music, 80s stuff, basically. And he said, well, Jakob, you're an old guy. You've been young in the 80s. You've listened to a lot of classic new wave stuff. You've played in a few new wave bands back in the day. And, well, maybe you can help me to get authentic sounds on stage and to, well, match the sounds of the album. And I said, oh, okay, sure, I come over. And, well, we worked on the Helix preset together. And when we were finished, we were so proud of our work that we decided to do a little YouTube video about it. And in this YouTube video, I'm going to show you, well, on the one hand, how the Helix preset is constructed, but also I will tell you how to get that 80s clean tone, how to get these, well, glimmering highs and shimmering choruses and all that. And yeah, in doing so, I will use the most 80s thing that I own, my original 1987 Ibanez RG550. It's not a Fender Stratocaster like Markus uses, but he needs the guitar right now. I couldn't borrow it from him. But it's still a very 80s guitar. It's going to sound a little bit different, but I think you get the picture. I'm going to do this on HX Edit, so, well, it might be at some points a little bit Helix specific, but if you use a different guitar processor, that's not a problem. I'll explain how to get these sounds, which pieces of equipment were used in the 80s, and how they were set up to attain these kind of clean tones. Yeah, and that's about it. And now we're going to go over to HX Edit, and I'm going to show you how I constructed the preset. Here we are in HX Edit, and step by step I'm going to show you how I dialed in that sound. Let's start with the amp. There is kind of an official 80s amp, a kind of official amp for 80s clean sounds. It's the Roland Jazz Chorus, the JC120. Surprisingly, it was released mid-70s, but it became popular in the early 80s by artists like Robert Smith of The Cure used it a lot, Wayne Hussey of The Mission used it a lot, and also Andy Summers of The Police. He used it, not exclusively, but he did use it a few times. This amp is a solid state amp. It is renowned for its great clean sound. It has got great highs. It's a very bright sounding amp. Not so famous is the distortion of the amp. We're not going to use that, of course. Yeah, you can see my settings here. You might be surprised that I dialed presence back a little, but the JC120 had a bright pot, and via this dial you could dial in the amount of brightness, and brightness meant really, really bright. So I dialed that up a bit to give me that bright amount of the signal you maybe heard in the demo. How did I mic that up? I went for dual miking, very classic combination. I've got a Shure SM57 right above the center cone to get a lot of these highs I wanted to have. This is the brightest thing you can do. SM57 directly pointing to cone. You can see that I dialed it back. Yeah, this is just, I normally turn it all the way off and rise it while I'm playing guitar to an amount where the amount of brightness which comes to this signal by it is to my desires. Second one is the basic mic I use to mic up everything. Here it's the model of the Sennheiser 421. And I've put a little bit to the right, so it's not at the brightest position it can be, and that one is at 0 dB, so that is the main mic. This is a classic mic combination used, SM57 and Sennheiser 421 is really run-of-the-mill. Nothing special about it. How does that sound? Yeah, that is the basic sound. Next thing we're going to add to it is reverb. I've chosen the dynamic hull. I'll always put reverb in parallel to a final compressor, which I use the LA Studio Comp. This is a studio compressor, and in parallel I've got the reverb to kind of emulate studio situation. I went obviously for the biggest room, and I put in lots of diffusion, so you have the illusion of sitting in a really big room with really big reverb. Always put the mix to 100%. I dial everything in here at the merge point, where I dial the reverb back until the amount of reverb is to my liking. How does that sound? That sounds like this. besides my inability to play Markus's riffs, yeah, gets there. But we need the extra 80s spice. And the extra 80s spice are the extra 80s effects, chorus, and delay. Well, let's move over to the chorus. The Roland Jazz Chorus wasn't called the Roland Jazz Chorus for no reason. It has a chorus, it has a great sounding chorus, and the chorus I'm using here is actually the chorus because they used the circuit of an older Boss Podle, the Chorus Ensemble 1, which was very popular in the 70s, and put it into the jazz chorus, and I'm going to turn that on. And, well, maybe you can see that the chorus rate is quite high, and the mix is at 50%, so the chorus signal is as loud as the original one. So that's going to be a lot of chorus, and you need a lot of chorus. When you're doing 80s sounds, always take a lot of everything, because in this time, effects were fairly new, and everybody was, well, going on about them and thinking they're very cool and stuff. And how does that sound? Always need the vibrator arm at the end. Well, okay, so yeah, that is already getting there. Of course, we need a delay. Of course, we need a digital delay by Boss because, well, the 80s were the Boss years. That's a model of the Boss delay. I forgot what the name was, but that was the one everybody used in the 80s. It's synced to 8s. You can also sync it to dotted 8s. That's going to, well, give a little bit of, almost a melody if you play it, but we did not do it here. We wanted to keep it, wanted to keep the rhythm clean. But you can see that the mix is fairly up. Yeah, so you're going to have a lot of delay here, a lot of feedback. It's going to be, well, a great delay. Well, Echofane, we call it in German. I'm not sure what the English term is, but it's going to be huge trails of delays here. And as you can see, these, when you are playing to a click track and everything, these are going to be in time. So this is going dung, 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 and you have these, you have this rhythm in the background. So that's the idea of this delay, the amount of room coming, of course, from the big reverb. And that was also done a lot in the 80s. You've got these sync delays. They had to calculate delay times. I had an Ibanez HD 1000 and I always calculated the delay times so I could use it in rhythm when I was recording guitars. Those were the days. But that's not all. There is a secret ingredient being, well, maybe a little bit secret. You might have noticed that didn't sound like what Markus did, and that is because one thing is missing. In the 80s, people put a compressor first into their signal chain, and they had really big compression, tight compression. And the most popular devices were the Boss CS1 and the MXR Dynacomp. We went for the MXR Dynacomp. It even sounded more 80s. And, well, what it does is it highlights the sustain a little bit and pulls back the attack. And you've got always this pad-like quality to the guitar once you play it with the effect on. I've just put that on, and it sounds like that now. Yeah, and now you have it. That's the sound, basically. You've got a big chorus, a big reverb, long trails of delays, and the little secret weapon is the Dynacomp first in the effects line. And, of course, the classic 80s amp, the Roland JC120. Yeah, that was it. Now you should know how to get that 80s clean tone. If you've liked the video, maybe drop me a like, subscribe to my channel. I'd be very grateful if you did so. And in the meantime, have fun playing guitar.